everyone, and welcome to today's tutorial. So we are going to be learning how to make the honey sweater. This is a knit design that will be linked down below. It's free on the blog, but there's also a printable PDF version that you can purchase if you so desire. So it looks scary, I know, but it's not. It's very simple. It's a sweater that has a 12-row repeat, which I will be writing down below, but really simple. As you can see, we're starting with a ribbing here, and then we begin working up this beautiful faux honeycomb design. And in the sweater, you're making 4 panels, and so this is a semi-cropped sweater, great for layering, but you can easily add to the length by just repeating the 12-row repeat until you get the desired length. So I didn't do any type of ribbed collar because I wanted it to be a little bit more open and not quite as restrictive. But as you can see, I have all 4 of the panels here, and they're all just the same thing, You're just either casting on more or less if you're doing the body panels or the sleeve panels, and then you're doing more rows depending on the size that you're making. So today what I'm going to do is I'm going to cast on the sleeve, the second sleeve for this. We're going to start right here at the ribbing. We're going to work our way up, and I'm going to do a repeat of the 12. So just 1 12 repeat here on camera. Then I'm going to finish the sleeve, and then I'll show you how to bind off. And once I've bound off, then I'm going to show you how to assemble all 4 of the pieces together. So go ahead and settle in and just get ready to watch this tutorial. Again, even if you're a beginner knitter, I really think that with patience, you can definitely do this. It's not very hard. And the sizes that I'll have available on the blog will be extra small all the way to a 4X size. So without further ado, we're going to go ahead and get started. Okay, so in this design, I used the Lion brand premium basic stitch yarn. It's one of their newer yarns that they released this year. I'll link that down below so you can check it out. They have so many colorways, and they also have the basic stitch anti-pill, which is very similar. The texture is slightly softer, but very similar. So you could use either of those to create this sweater. And then next, I am using some Clover US 8 5mm needles. This is a shorter circular needle, like removable, where I can take these on and off. I just started investing in the Clover interchangeable needles, and I really like them. I had the boy ones, but I found that the boys always came unscrewed, so I highly recommend the Clover interchangeables, and I'll link that stuff down below too if you want to check those out. So this is really simple. So what I'm going to do for this sleeve is I'm going to cast on the number that I need, and we're just going to do a long tail cast on, and I'm going to need to cast on 45. So I've got my slip knot, and once you make your slip knot, you're going to keep your working yarn in the back and your tail in the front, and I just kind of pull that tight. And the way that I do a cast on is I'm going to do it slow here a few times just so you can see, but we kind of make this little gun, and we stick our fingers right underneath and kind of pull them apart, and then using these 3 fingers I grab both the working yarn and the tail. So now I've got my little gun. And as I cast on, this slip knot that we put on the needle does count as 1. So I'm going to go under this first one, around the next one, and through. Let go and pull tight. Not too tight now, but you do want to make sure that these little parts where they're coming together are even. So I'll do that again. You go under, around, and through. again, under, around, and through. And then I'll do it one more time. Under, around, and through. So just like that. So I'm going to go ahead and cast on the rest of these really quick, and then I'm going to show you how to get started on the ribbing. Okay, so now that I've gotten all 45 of those stitches cast on, we're going to begin the ribbing. And this is a 1x2 ribbing. We start with a knit stitch, we do 2 purls, knit, 2 purls, knit, 2 purls, and so on and so forth. So one thing that I like to do whenever I knit or purl my first stitch, whatever I'm doing, I like to secure the tail. So we're going to knit. So you're going to stick your needle in behind like this. I like to take my tail and my working yarn and wrap to help secure that very first stitch. So I just take that tail and I just pull that tight. And even though there's 2 loops there, we're just going to treat that like one. Then when you purl, you bring your yarn to the front and you wrap to the front, and then you just kind of slip it off like that. Our yarn is still in the front for the next purl. Just like that. Bring your yarn to the back, knit, bring your yarn to the front, purl, purl again, yarn to the back, yarn back to the front for the purls, yarn to the back for the knit stitches, front for the purls, and then yarn to the back for the knit stitches. So it's just a knit, purl, purl, knit, purl, purl to begin this first row. So go ahead and finish your knits and purls, and then I'll show you how to complete row 2. And we'll repeat rows 1 and row 2 for a total of 7 ribbing rows. So go ahead and do that. Okay, so now that we have completed row 1, we're just going to turn and make sure that all of your stitches are facing the same direction, that you don't have any of this kind of twisting stuff, because that's going to mess you up and you're going to have to pull stuff out. So if you look, you can kind of tell here that you've got these V's right here, which indicate that these are 2 knit stitches on this side. So you ended with 2 purl stitches, but when we flip, we want to make sure that we are putting knit stitches in those places. So you're doing the opposite of what you did on the other row. So on the other row, we started with a 1 knit stitch and 2 purls, and now we're starting with 2 knits and 1 purl. So the alternating back and forth is just kind of look at whatever your stitches are. And obviously it'll be written in the pattern, but those little V's, it might be a little hard to see on camera, but there's 2 V's there, and then there's kind of like a little bit of a bobble, if you will. Let me see if I can bring it into focus. So 2 V's and like a little ball. And then a little ball and 2 V's. So those 2 V's are knits and the ball are the purl stitches. So we're just going to knit, knit, bring our yarn to the front, purl, take your yarn to the back, knit, knit, bring your yarn to the front, purl, take your yarn to the back, knit, knit, yarn to the front again, purl, take the yarn to the back, knit, knit. So you are essentially going to repeat rows 1 and row 2 for this ribbing section, and let me pull in this other sleeve just so you can see. This is the ribbing section that we're doing. So you don't necessarily need to keep track of your count. You can just stop and go, start at the bottom here where the first little V is and just say, okay, I've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. And when you get to 7, you will stop, and then that's when we're going to begin our honeycomb. So complete a total of 7 of these ribbing rows and then come back and I'm going to show you how to start the faux honeycomb repeat. I did want to really quick show you, remember whenever we did our first initial stitch, we went underneath the tail and the working yarn. So you're going to have what appears to be 2 stitches, but just remember on your second row, your very last stitch is actually going to be going underneath both of those. And you would just knit like normal and then pull that stitch tight. So I just wanted to remind you of that in case you forgot. Okay, so we've gotten our ribbing done and I just want to make mention of wrong side and right side rows. So if you see how you just kind of have this line here of the purl stitches, this would be considered our right side row. And this is where we're going to be working up the faux honeycomb pattern. Now as we turn and we start on the next row, this would be considered wrong side. So as you can see, we've got 2 strands of purls with 2 strands of knits with 1 little purl row separating the 2 strands of knits. So all of the rows where this side of the ribbing is facing you would be considered the wrong rows. And on the wrong side rows, all the stitches are purled. And so just a brief reminder, purl stitches are simply with your yarn in front. And we're just wrapping like this. And all wrong side rows are purled, just like this. You just purl all the way around. So I just wanted to make mention of that because I'm not going to show you me purling every single row. I'll just tell you, okay, purl the next row, and then we'll begin the right side, next step in the right side faux honeycomb. So just purl. After you get done finishing the ribbing, you're going to purl the next row to start our faux honeycomb stitch. So go ahead and do that. Okay, so now we're back to the right side and now we're going to begin setting up our faux honeycomb stitch. Okay, so the first thing that we're going to do is we're going to knit the first stitch. Then we're going to bring our yarn to the front and we're going to slip the next 3 stitches. And all this is you're just taking it off of one needle and sliding it onto the next. Taking it off of one needle, sliding it onto the next, taking it off and sliding it. Then you bring the yarn to the back, kind of wrapping it over those 3 that we just slipped, and you knit the next stitch. Bring your yarn back to the front, and we're going to slip, slip, slip. Bring your yarn to the back and knit the next stitch. Yarn to the front, slip, 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 yarn to the back and knit the next stitch. Yarn to the front, slip, 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 yarn to the back, knit the next stitch. You're going to continue repeating the slip, 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 knit over and over all the way to the end, ending with a knit in the last stitch. So go ahead and do that. And remember, after you slip those 3, bring your yarn to the back and knit your last stitch. Now for the wrong side row, you're going to purl all the stitches. So go ahead and purl all those stitches, and I'll meet you back for the next one. Okay, so we purled the row on the wrong side, and now we're just going to repeat exactly what we did here. A knit, bring your yarn to the front, slip the 3 and knit. So I'm going to show you again those first few. So we knit, bring the yarn to the front, slip, 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 take your yarn to the back, knit the next stitch, bring your yarn to the front, slip, 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 take your yarn to the back, knit the next stitch, yarn to the front, slip, 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 take your yarn to the back, knit the next stitch. Do this all the way across, ending with a knit in your very last stitch. After completing that row, you should see 2 loose bars right here of those 3 slip stitches that we've done. On the wrong side, you're going to purl all the way around, and then we'll start again on the right side, and I'll show you what to do next. Okay, so we finished that wrong side row, and now comes the fun part. Now is when we're going to start to see those beautiful honeycombs starting to come into shape. So the first thing we're going to do is we're going to knit 1, knit 2, then we're going to knit under these loose strands. So we're going to take our needle and we're going to go under both of those loose strands, right straight up into that stitch. We're going to knit it. Make sure you kind of pull a little tight, because what you're going to do now is you're going to come out of that stitch down underneath those slipped stitches and slide it off. Okay, so let's do that again. Well, I'm sorry, we got to knit the next 3. 1, 2, and 3. Okay, so we knit 3. Now we're going to knit under these loose strands. Okay. So we've got these loose strands. So we're going to go under those loose strands, just go under them, straight up into that first stitch that we're going to knit. Wrap your yarn, pull it kind of tight, bring your needle out, slide it down under those loose stitches, and then slide off the needle. then knit the next 3. 1, 2, 3. Okay, so let's do it again. We're going to knit under the loose stitches. Take your needle, slide under the 2 loose strands, go straight into that first stitch. We're going to knit it. We're going to pull that yarn just a little tight. We're going to slip our needle out. We're going to come down under and slide it off. Knit the next 3. 1, 2, 3. Again, knit under the loose stitches, go under them, up into that stitch. We're going to knit it, pull it, and then slide that one off. So if you can see, there's our little honeycomb right there, already starting to form. So what's happening is we're drawing up those loose stitches, okay, and creating that honeycomb look. So we're going to knit 3 again. 1, 2, 3. Knit under the loose stitches, so go under both of those, into that stitch, around, and slide it off. Knit the next 3. 1, 2, 3. Here we are again. We go under the loose stitches, knit, slide that one off, knit 3, and then I'm just going to do it slowly just so you can see without any talking. And just like you began with 2 knit stitches, you're going to end with a knit stitch in the last 2. So next, you do a purl row. Start the next row. We're going to knit these first 3 stitches. So it's just knit, knit, knit. Bring your yarn to the front. And we're going to slip those stitches again. So just slip, slip, slip. Take your yarn to the back, knit the next stitch, yarn to the front, slip, 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 yarn to the back, knit the next stitch, yarn to the front, slipping those 3 stitches, yarn to the back, knit the next one, yarn to the front, slip 3, take your yarn to the back, knit the next one. Continue this around, ending with 3 knits in the last 3 stitches, 1 in each. Purl the wrong side row. Knit the first 3. Oop, slipped off. And then bring our yarn to the front and slip 3. Take yarn to the back, knit, yarn to the front again, slip 3, yarn to the back, knit, yarn to the front, slip 3, yarn to the back, knit, yarn to the front, slip 3, yarn to the back, knit. And just keep doing that all the way around, ending with 1 knit stitch in each of the last 3 stitches. Purl your wrong side row. So this is the final row of the 12 row repeat. So we're going to knit the first 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, and just like we did prior right here when we were drawing up those loose strands, we're going to do the same exact thing. We're going to reach down under the loose strands, straight up into that stitch. We're going to knit it, pull those down, slide that stitch off. Knit 3, 1, 2, 3. Go down underneath those loose strands, straight up into that stitch. Wrap your yarn to knit, pull down underneath those loose strands, and slide it off. Knit 3, 1, 2, 3. I'll do it slowly without talking. And just like we started with 4 knit stitches, we just knit once in the last 4 stitches. And that is the end of the 12 row repeat. And you're going to do this for however many times the size that you're making calls for. So you basically have 2 little diamonds or 2 little honeycomb spots per 12 row repeat. So remember, all of your wrong side rows are purled, and then the front or right side rows is where you're working the honeycomb magic. So I'm going to go finish this sleeve, and then I'm going to come back. I'm going to show you how to bind the sleeve and body panels off. It's all done the same way, because remember, the only thing that's different is the sizing. The way each panel works, which is 4 panels, 2 sleeves, 2 bodies, is exactly the same. So once I get this done, I'm going to come back, show you how to bind it off, and then I'm going to show you how to seam this whole thing together so that you can start wearing it. Okay, so now that we have completed all of the repeats necessary for this sleeve, what I'm going to do now is show you how to bind off. And this is really simple. So this is our purl or wrong side row, so we're going to bind off doing the purl stitches. So we're going to purl that first one, purl the next one, then we're going to come over to that first stitch we made. We're going to grab it, bring it up and over that stitch to sort of close it off. So purl the next one, then come over, grab that very first stitch, bring it up, oops, and sometimes that's going to happen, bring it up and over that. So we've closed off 2 of those stitches. Purl, grab that first one, bring it up and over, purl, grab that first stitch, up and over, purl, grab it, bring it up and over. And don't feel bad if you need to just use your fingers. I do this sometimes too. Just bring it up and over like that. If you find you can't grab onto it with your needle, sometimes I do that. So it's very simple. You're just purling and then closing off the stitch right after you purl. So go ahead and do that all the way across. And then once you've got all your panels made, you can come back and I'll show you how to seam this together to where you can't see any of the seams. It's an invisible join and it just looks like one fluid garment. So do that and then come back to the video. Stitch. Just go ahead and cut yourself a decent sized tail so that you're able to weave it in. And on that last one, you're just going to take the tail and close out that last stitch, just like that. So now we're done with our needles, and what I'm going to do next is I'm going to take my tapestry needle and I'm going to put the sleeves to the side. And I am going to take my 2 body panels. So as you can see, I'm kind of laying them. Here's where my head section is going to go. Taking my 2 body panels, and we're going to kind of like mark off where exactly we want the head hole to be. So this is a child size that I'm making right here for my daughter. And so I want my head hole to be about 8 to 10 inches wide. And for adults, you want it to be anywhere from 10 to 13 inches wide, depending on head size and those sorts of things. So if you're making it for yourself, I would definitely put stitch markers and kind of plop it over your head to see, is that comfortable? Is it too tight? Is it too loose? And then from there, we're basically just going to take a tapestry needle or a darning needle. I've heard it called many things. You're just going to take just a decent amount, because obviously I'm not going to be using a ton. So I'm just taking some string here, feeding this through. Make sure you get all the strands. And the main thing is to make sure that your stitches are really nice and lined up. So let's see. We're going to start right here. So I'm going to go ahead and put my needle there. And if it's looking right, we should be, let's see, 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. So we're going to come straight across over to this side. So I'm going to pull this yarn through and kind of leave a little bit of a tail. And then I'm going to come over to this side, going underneath the same exact space. And I'm going to pull that tight. And then I'm going to look for the next little V to go underneath. I'm going to pull that tight. And then the next V on this side, I'm going to go underneath that. Always making sure to pull things tight. The key here is symmetry, making sure that everything stays nice and lined up. So take your time as you do this. It will be worth it in the end, I promise. So as you work farther up, you can see, let's pull that. You can see this is lining up and we don't have like this exposed seam going across here. And just come straight across over to this side. Just always looking for those V. They're really knit stitches is what they are. But looking for those knit stitches to work underneath, so as to ensure we've got a nice clean seam. And you'll be really glad that you took the time to do it this way, because it looks so much better. So much better. So I'm just double checking, making sure things are still lining up. I don't want anything to get off. And we're just kind of pulling tight. And you want to make sure too here, whenever you start, that you leave yourself long enough to be able to weave it in on the underside. Otherwise, you're not going to have enough. And it's going to come unraveled, which is not what we want. We want to keep things nice and tidy. So this is essentially what you're going to do for the sleeves. The only difference is your sleeve will be in a slightly different direction, and you'll need to line up your sleeve with the center seam we're doing, where we're coming to right here. So you'll need to just make sure that you line up your sleeve, and I'll show you how to do that. It's not hard. Seaming is actually, it's kind of like putting the icing on the cupcake. It signifies you're almost totally done, and either yourself or someone else is about to be able to wear the item that you have worked so hard to make. So as you can see, we have a nice tight seam, and here's the underside, so it looks really clean, very professional. That's one of the reasons why I fell in love with this style of seaming, and I'm going to flip this around because I'm going to show you how to go about lining up your sleeve. Now the edges of this obviously aren't quite as clean and stiff as the top, so the main thing is to just make sure that you've got it lined up with the middle. So you're going to want to take your sleeve and you can go along here and count your stitches. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20, 21. So there's my middle stitch right there. So I'm actually going to take this tail. We just came off of that part, and I know that that is my middlemost section, if you will. So from here, what I'm going to do is I'm just going to go underneath the stitch, just like we did on the other side. And we're just going to grab, I try not to grab the very first stitch, I grab the next knit stitch that I see, like this, and then go to this one, and just make sure that you're following the stitches along. So really just go in order of the stitches as you see them. Try not to skip any because that'll put weird tension on your garment, which is, you don't want that. You don't want it to be pulling oddly. So just follow all those knit stitches along and just keep lining them up. It's mainly what we want to do, is just continue to line them up like so. And then once you get your sleeve attached, and I will have to come back and do this side, but once you get your sleeve attached, you're going to take your garment, you got to get both sleeves attached, not just one. You're going to take your garment and you're going to flip it closed as if you were getting ready to put it on. And then starting at the cuff is where I like to start. Starting at the cuff, working up to the underarm, and then back down to the waistband. I find that the garment lays a little bit better than if you were to do it where you start at the waistband and work your way up to the cuff. I just don't care for how it lays whenever you do it that way, but it's a preference, and it's just going to be really the same exact approach. You just want to make sure that you're lining things up, that everything is nice and even, and you aren't pulling the body too far one way and you're not pulling the sleeves too far one way either. So you just got to be careful of that. And it's really that simple. And then once you get everything seamed together, weave in any tails that you might have, which you're going to be making some as you're seaming. So just weave in any tails that you have. And at that point, you can either block your garment, which let me know down in the comments if you would like me to put together a video explaining and showing how to block your garment. There are multiple ways to do it, and I know some people know how to do it and some people do not. So let me know if that is a video that y'all would be interested in, and I can put that together for you all. And then this is our very last one for this side. And so I'll just leave that tail just like that, and I'll come back and weave that in. And so what I was saying on the, I know this side isn't woven in, but I just want to explain to you what I mean. So we would take our garment and we would fold everything line, you know, pretend that the armpits are sewn together. You'd line it all up, and then you'd start at your sleeve cuff, come up to the underarm, and come all the way down. And you can use stitch markers along the way to help keep things in place, so you're not constantly having to do this number and messing with it. So that is basically it. All of the information for pattern sizing is linked down below. You can purchase the PDF if you so desire, but all of the sizes extra small to 4X will be on the blog. There'll be lots of information and lots of explanation, and of course you can always refer back to the video. Please be sure to like and subscribe. Let me know what you think of the honey sweater if you're going to try it. If you do try it, I would love to see it on social media. I'm at YarnHookNeedles everywhere. And yeah, I hope you enjoy making this sweater. It is by far one of my favorite knit designs that I have done since I started designing over 6 years ago. So this is definitely one of my favorites. Beginner friendly, simple, not a lot of shaping or anything crazy like that. So give this video a thumbs up, and I'll see you guys tomorrow.